Indie author Brian Niemeyer went hard at Brandon Sanderson talking about his world building and how it's actually a detriment for modern science fiction and fantasy. This is quite an interesting essay, and I'm going to be going over this in just a moment because that's what the mainstream industry is hailing Brandon Sanderson for, as if it's some kind of good thing. But it's really just this like formulaic, hyper-detailed sort of deal that does not lend credence to a fantasy world and doesn't make sense a lot of the time. And so that's why this is a hot topic right now today. Let's get into the real fantasy news, my friends. Thanks for being here, and hit the like and subscribe button as we talk about all things in science fiction and fantasy. I am a fantasy writer myself. If you want to check out my stuff based on my discussions here and what I think about world building, this is my first Steam and Country. I built a beautiful world in Rislandia, and it's really epic. It's got a lot of depth to it. It's got cool characters, cool cultures, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So grab this. It's in the description below, and it's a 6-book series. You can get it all on ebook, print, and audio. Thanks so much. If you like airship swashbuckling adventure, this is the series for you. Grab it today and support our channel. Okay. So this is interesting from Brian Niemeyer. Like I said, a wonderful author himself. If you haven't looked him up, here's how you spell it. Brian, Niemei. Oh, geez. Yes, E-R. Niemeyer. Niemeier. Whew. What a spelling bee competition today, my friends. Fun stuff. So he wrote a great essay about this, and I couldn't agree with him more. Let's talk about it. In the sphere of modern genre fiction, few names spark as much excitement or debate as Brandon Sanderson. His intricate magic systems and meticulous world building have inspired countless writers to follow in his footsteps. But as the publishing industry continues to evolve, it's becoming clear that a new generation of writers, particularly web novelists with literary role-playing game or LitRPG, has taken this foundational work and pushed it into uncharted and unintended territories. In case you've just been emerging from a cave, he is an author known for his detailed world building. His Cosmere universe brims with multitudes of worlds, complex magic systems, legions of characters, has set a bar for world crafting that many fantasy rivals feel compelled to match. So world crafting is like the world building element of a novel that like you do as pre-writing. So you set up the rules of magic, you set up how things go, and you set up the technology, who the characters are, what their culture's like, etc. And you can do a little bit of that. You can do a lot of that. But it's very interesting. Like, people are doing more and more and more as it goes on. And this is something about writing that is a big deal. And people always talk about Tolkien in terms of world building. And Tolkien did a ton of world building. But when you actually get into Lord of the Rings, he leaves most of that out at the door. You don't actually have all that world building in the book. He knows all of it. Like, it's its own history of 1,000 years past and 1,000 years future. And he's got all this all detailed in different notes and things like that to keep it all straight for himself. But really, you just have this adventure of Frodo and going forward, and that is a large part of Lord of the Rings there. Brandon Sanderson puts almost all of it on the page by contrast. Everything he's done gets into the book. The world building, of course, usually has a twist surrounding the magic system that he's actually crafted in this, and it feels a lot more like a role-playing game or lit RPG, like was said before. And so this is the different types of role-playing and actually role-playing, world building that gets into the craft of novel building that happens all the time. Now, same thing. Like when I go into my fantasy books, I would say that I do some world building, and I only use what's needed for the story in it and don't describe a lot of it because it's just something that's setting the system in the background. I let the characters and the storyline and the plot line actually be what delivers here. And when you do that, you have a much tighter novel, and you don't really need to sprawl out for 1,000 pages a book. And that's exactly where modern fantasy's really gone wrong in a lot of elements because of this. So while Sanderson's legacy is undeniable, the proliferation of indie authors, especially in the lit RPG scene, has demonstrated how the art of world building is not only advanced, but diversified. These new pub creators who began pushing the boundaries of Sanderson's pioneering and then creating a complex, interactive, flexible unit. And therein lies the trap, as Niemeyer said. Let's take a step back to understand this. His gift lies in creating magic systems that are logical, carry explanatory power, more difficulty to convey with old-school mystical magic. These systems operate with almost scientific precision, adhering to his famed laws of magic. Then he then goes and puts these rules into his worlds, which maintain a degree of consistency that appeals to fans of complex nuts and bolts storytelling. His world building is an overabundance. It can be a blessing and a curse, and I mentioned how it could be a curse already. While it's undeniably impressive, it also has a tendency to overshadow the characters and the plot, trapping some stories in endless loops of expansion and refinement. As J-Bat mentions, the world building could spiral into an endless exercise. Once a writer begins to flesh out a fictional world, it's easy to fall into the trap of constantly refining and expanding it. The allure of creating new cultures, languages, and histories is hard to resist. And this comes from epic fantasy quite a way, because everybody looked at what Tolkien did off the page and then tried to do it on the page. I mean, if you look at Robert Jordan's kind of pitfalls, it's the same thing. The world building that makes Wheel of Time very, very interesting is also a pitfall where it's like, oh, he's going to describe this town that they're going to visit for 10 minutes over the next 50 pages, and you're going to learn every nail and every piece of wood in the town, and you really don't need to know that as a reader a lot of the time. It slows you down. It slows the plot down quite a bit. The more layers the writer adds, the more he risks distracting readers from the heart of the story and characters and plot. Stumbling block is evident in Sanderson's massive multi-book epics, and the sheer scale of the world building can overwhelm the pacing. In recent years, indie writers, particularly those working in LitRPG, have managed to tackle the world-building problems head-on. The beauty of LitRPG as a genre is it combines the rules of video games with traditional fantasy, and the world-building becomes more than just an endless expansion of lore. It becomes gameplay mechanic. Instead of endlessly describing the history of a nation, they have figured out how to make the worlds inherently engaging for readers by making them interactive. LitRPG is an adventure subgenre where characters experience the story through game-like interfaces. The form has exploded in popularity over the last decade, largely thanks to the web novels and self-publishing platforms like Royal Road. Unlike traditional fantasy, which often focuses on static world building, LitRPG authors make their setting dynamics reactive. The world isn't just a backdrop, it shapes it. And in this, magic systems and world building are tied directly to game mechanics. For example, characters gain experience points, level up, and the like. One of the most striking aspects is because of its accessibility, and it's because it feels like a video game, and that's why you can get into it. Sanderson created worlds with histories so deep, casual readers might find themselves lost in the minutiae of the backstory, which is, I think, the problem with this. In contrast, LitRPG kind of perfected that with the built-in mechanism there, and this is something that happens a lot with these web novelists that are going out and putting these up in different environments on this. So, Sanderson goes a little far on this. And his influence has pushed this whole genre and pushed this a little too far in a lot of regards in modern fantasy. We've lost a lot of modern fantasy because of this. We've lost the traditional fantasy all the way. You don't see any of it anymore. It's all LitRPG on the shelves, or it's the romantasy stuff that, of course, is just pornography for women. That is a completely separate thing in this level. But this movement has shown that world building doesn't have to be confined to endless exposition or towering series like Sanderson has. By making the world interactive, dynamic, and tied directly to character development, indie writers are carving out new ways of telling engaging, accessible stories. For new pub authors, LitRPG represents a compelling model. Blending world building with gameplay mechanics and character progression, authors can create an important feel. And so this is it. And this is where Sanderson, I think, has gone a little far into what I say is too much world building on the page. I think it's slowed down his novels quite a bit, and that is the pitfall of what's going on here. I know that the Cosmere universe, especially with the Stormlight Archive, fell into that trap very, very hard. People think the last couple books especially really didn't push the plot for what everything was set up. And the thing is, when you set up that kind of details as an author, you are promising the reader quite a payoff, because the more detail you put into something, that payoff has to be grander. That's just kind of how it works. Otherwise, you're just doing something that's incorrect with the storytelling, because you're telling the reader what's important is that detail, and that has to then pay off. Otherwise, you kind of broke that promise to the reader. And I think that's what happened here, and I think this is what happened. Is the big pitfall of this, and people copying this sort of thing and doing way too much world building on the page is a big problem for fantasy writers all the way across the board. And it's something that does need to be dialed back quite a bit. Is LitRPG the solution? Is that the pivot that needs to be done, or do we need a different brand of fantasy that's real fantasy that doesn't have that? Leave a comment down below. Love to hear from you, your thoughts on fantasy in this. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and also check out my books, starting with For Seaman Country. If you like airship adventure, like I said earlier, this is the series for you. It's available in ebook, print, and audio for your convenience. Grab it in the description below. We'll be back soon.